couple of years ago we did a piece with Peter O'Mahony. He talked about the crippling effect of the nerves pre-match. He was fine once the game started, but he found the day before and it was the Shelbourne part when there was grand when you guys were out in camp, but when you get into the city centre and the match was imminent, he found that bit really hard, and he found the bit to the stadium hard. But then once the game started, obviously he judging from his performances, it was pretty amazing. This week he was talking about enjoying the whole thing, and he played like somebody who was reborn and happy to be in the role of somebody who was coming on to close games. And like, this squad is not going to be a squad where it's just the new young kids who come in and all of a sudden everything is fixed by the youth. You're going to need to get big performances from him and Ian Henderson, who is, before he comes on, the most experienced player in the field. Like, again, that's a really good sign for the coaching ticket and the environment they're creating.
You nailed it there. I think you don't want to beat up a previous regime, but I think there's a contrast to the World Cup messaging around, they felt quite stunted in what their development. There was over scrutiny of performance, and maybe the messaging wasn't getting the most out of them, even though the coaching had been very successful for a period of time. So it does feel as though there's an environment that they're flourishing in, that they're excited, enjoying one another's company. The coaching ticket, obviously, you look at all their personalities and they're all pretty easygoing people, even though they take their business very seriously. John Fogarty, Paulie,
Fogarty's on having a laugh as the water boy in the middle of the game.
And Andy, all of them are they're similar in many of their aspects of personality, and that seems to be having a positive impact on their players. I'm not saying that these things remain forever, but they should enjoy that now, and that comes with success as well. And success sometimes does paper over cracks, but it does feel a lot of what they're saying right now is that it feels like they've got an awful lot of input themselves, and they're playing heads up, and they're not overly subjected to a particular game plan or style. That there's a lucidity to being able to express themselves where they see fit, and they're thriving on the back of that information.
Andy Farrell specifically said that we in the Northern Hemisphere have repeatedly been told about how we're hardworking, but he believes more than that we have skills, that we are skillful people. And it's not a message. I was drawing comparisons between that and what Stephen Kenny's talking about the football team. Is like, our football culture is not just kick and rush. We can actually be creative if we invest in people and tell them that you're capable of doing this, as opposed to constantly saying you're going to bash it up, we're going to be really strong at the set pieces, we're going to smother the opposition, don't try anything else.
I have to say I'm looking on enviously at the moment of the style and how many people are looking for the pass. They don't throw it every time, but as offloaders.
Yeah.
By
not throwing it every time, you keep everybody honest.
15 years ago, there was 3 or 4 offloads in a game if you were lucky. And so it's a mindset then. You don't run the support lines of that.
Because you know it's not coming.
Because it's highly unlikely. But now if you look at every time they win a collision, they're trying to get their arms free, get through into the space and look for someone to hopefully get through that hole. If it's not on, fine, recycle. But it's, they're trying to play heads up on what's in front of them and express themselves. And I do think that is bringing the best out of them.
I think someone like James Lowe as well also typifies a little bit of the evolution in this whole thing. Bollocks is always given out about my D was a hilarious post-match, but it's true, everybody was always giving out about his D. I'd say he was hearing that from his Leinster coaches as well, so it wasn't just the people.
He knew it too, by the way. He knew it too. He knows in his own head. You're your own worst critic, otherwise you're deluded, and you're not going to get picked for very long if you're deluded. So he knew it, and he just was trying to make light of it all and have fun, because that's in his personality. But yeah, many's a true word said in jest as well. Yeah,
it felt a little bit like he found international rugby to be that step up that everybody talks about. Oh, it's a totally different kettle of fish from the Champions Cup. The Champions Cup is totally different from the whatever league it's called. And that's true, right? And like, despite the fact he's old for a test debutant, he still is cutting his teeth. So 10-12 caps in is a good time to make a judgment on him. I think now he's going to be a very valuable member for this team. Whether or not he's first choice if everybody's fit, he probably is at the moment. Hopefully he puts pressure on everybody else to raise their game. And it was good management to keep him in the team as opposed to saying, right, off you go.
Yeah, it was good management, and there was definitely question marks around his selection for the Japanese game. There were does he warrant and merit that? But obviously he was showing enough, in camp to justify another opportunity. You have to remember too what he does deliver going forward. Even though he was kind of somewhat negated in his attack performances in the early Test matches, because of that bigger physicality. I think now he's had a chance to adjust. He knows that he needs to raise his attack game from Champions Cup to international. You don't get away with the same yardage in one competition to the next. And I think now that's dawned on him. But also, obviously, going away and doing all the work from a defensive point of view, and he had some big moments that absolutely builds confidence to think, okay, now I have improved. And half of it is about the self-messaging, about reminding yourself that and building your internal confidence, not what other people think of you, but what you think of yourself.
And in retrospect, that's the benefit of the England win, is that it gave everybody this jolt of confidence to go, actually, we're on the right track here.
Totally, and you do. In anything, in any turnaround, you need a catalyst of some sort, and sometimes it's a one-off moment, and sometimes it's a progressional thing. But it did feel like it was a massive leap forward in the right direction in what they were trying to do, what they were trying to achieve. But in all of this, it comes back to being collision winners again. That game plan's no good if you're on the back foot. No game plan's any good on the back foot. They might be able to create some chance, but it's way tougher because you're not thinking aggressively. You're thinking kind of reactive to a bad situation. How do we get the most out of this bad situation versus we've got them on the ropes, we've got them going backwards. So it's such a mental part to the game, but within the physical aspect, you've got to win collisions. I heard second row for New Zealand captain Sam Whitelock talking about the messaging at halftime in the French game. They were saying, we thought about being collision winners and letting the ruck take care of itself. That is the simplicity of the game. It's so much easier to win fast ruck ball when you're going forward than it is going back. And I'll say that for the next 10 years if I'm on this show. It's not going to ever change. It was the same 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So you have to first and foremost physically impose yourself, and that's why South Africa have had such huge success with a team that maybe isn't playing the most beautiful brand of rugby, but
they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, they're not. They've had great success over the summer too.
Is it wrong that in what we're doing at the moment, it seems like we're trying to be smarter about the collisions, that it's not just brute force, that actually we're employing more footwork, and the offload at the point of the little pop pass before the collision happens is that you set it's your strongest part against their weak shoulder, that it's not just stereotypical, we're going to bash you until we're dead.
But sure, like we've learnt in the past, trying to take people on at their own game, England, South Africa, France, New Zealand, we've come off second best. Consistently to beat those teams, we're going to have to use that physical prowess and ability we have. But
I was thinking of the France game where we beat them up.
Yeah.
But we beat them so badly that 5 of our players were left bloodied on the ground to the point where they were out for 6 months.
We got to beat them with an intelligence now and make life easier for ourselves. We don't have the same number of athletes that other teams have. Those teams that I mentioned, we just don't. Our depth goes to 30, maybe 35 of really great quality now. But beyond that, it's a significant fall off. So we want to hold on to them. So how do you modify your game a little bit just to make it that bit easier to play week on week, to play uninjured, to play for 60 or 70 minutes as a front rower, to not take on, endless amounts of ball. I remember a really good analogy is Schalk Burger. And remember his early days, that blonde hair bobbing up and down and running in and just trying to make holes for people. he had then had long-term injury, had bad illness, and came back, and there's question marks as to whether he could do it again. And he became a playmaker. He realised, if I want to stay in this game for another 2, 3, 4 years, I've got to modify and change things, and I've got to present one picture and then become a distributor out the back as well. And that's what you're seeing in that front pod. You're seeing the same picture each time of carrying forward aggressive lines outside and inside and out with someone out the back. And until the very last second, a defence is going, I don't know which option this is, so we've got to respect them all. And then you pick the right one, it creates space and uncertainty elsewhere. And the variety of it. If you throw that every time, well, players will play off you. Whereas you see Furlong and Kelleher, they get stuck with the pass. They don't pass on rubbish as well. They carry and go, right, hard yards here. Yeah. Let's build on the next phase. It's just really smart decision making in kind of what seems like moments that aren't impactful in the game, but all those micro moments have a big overall outcome. It is the aggregation
over a season as well, and like even if it's 10% fewer rucks, that means 10% less impacts, and all that kind of stuff is hopefully going to help our injury profile.